This weekend, F1 is racing in the United States for the first of 3 times this year. So let's have a period chat about what is currently F1's only American team, Haas. Okay, and Williams. The 12 teams that are at the front of the midfield fight, really, the moment in 5th and 6th on 25 points for Williams and 20 for Haas. That's where it looks like the fight for that P5 in the Constructors' best of the rest position is. I mean, let's face it, weekend the top teams that'll lock out the top 4 spots of the Constructors, it's just a fact of in what order will they be. And meanwhile, behind Williams and Haas, Alpine, Aston Martin, Sauber or Racing Bulls could very easily get involved in that P5 fight. It's still only 5 races into a 24 race calendar. Anything can happen, things can change quickly, and as we've seen before, all it takes is a team having one really good weekend, a la Alpine in Brazil, and it can totally change things. But we're speaking about Inu. And Inu is looking like a Williams-Haas battle for P5. And honest to God, I cannot wait to see how this one works out because I think it's going to be a great fight. Both teams have had at least one double no-point score so far, and likewise both teams have had 2 double points finishes, with some big points hauls for them. Albon's P5 in the season opener, Ocon's P5 a week later, Behrman's P8 in the same weekend, double points for Haas while Williams scored nothing in Bahrain, double points for Williams while Haas were the ones to double no score in Saudi. Just shows there how quickly things can change. And admittedly, some of those results I just mentioned were aided in Australia chucking the weather forecast out the window and refusing to hit any sense of predictability weather-wise, which caused chaos, and then China going, hold my disqualifications. But my point stands because sometimes stuff like yon is just part of this wacky and wonderful sport we all love. The thing about the midfield is, and this is something I like about it, is it can change so quickly from one weekend to another, who's good, who's not. Which is that is absolutely something that can be the case at the front of the field too. I mean, just look at Red Bull from Japan to Bahrain for comparison. However, at the front of the field, if in one of the top teams, if you're like, say, Max Verstappen in Japan to Bahrain, where one weekend you're right up there fighting for pole and the win, but the next weekend you're no, unless something goes horribly wrong, you are probably still likely to make Q3. In the midfield, that kind of good one weekend, no as good the next, could mean a difference of fighting for Q3 one weekend, then finding yourself out in Q1 the next. You definitely can score points for start at the back, being out in Q1. We've seen it time and again. Hell, Ollie Behrman just did it in Bahrain a few weeks back. However, starting closer to the points rather unsurprisingly makes it easier to score points, and it makes it easier to be in a position to really capitalize on one of the big names falling foul for whatever reason to score more than, say, 8th place, 9th place or whatever. And come the end of the season, as alluded to earlier when I said a big result can change everything for these midfield fights, capitalizing on the big runner errors could make the difference in who finishes best of the rest of P5 in the Constructors and what misses out. So Haas or Williams, what do I think it'll be? Well, let's go through the 2 teams in question. First of all, Williams, who have a solid driver lineup, who've both been in top teams before. Both of whom have stood on the podium, one of which has won multiple races, one of which has taken a handful of pole positions, and they have a team principal who spent years working at the 4th most successful F1 team ever, helping them win 7 drivers' titles and 8 constructors' titles in the span of 8 seasons. And he has spent the better part of about 24 odd years in F1 as a whole. This is, I'd say, the best Williams team we've seen in years. The last few years they've been a little bit shaky, had crash-prone drivers. I saw a video on Instagram Reels. I will see if I can find it again. I hope I saved it. I will see if I can find it and I'll put it on the screen with, like, you know, who posted in that. But it was pointing out, like, teams crashes over the last 5 years, and Williams had the most of like 44 or something. Again, I'll see if I can try and find the video. But they've been a little bit shaky in terms of performance. They kind of took a bit of a dip down 2018 really, and they've been trying to get themselves back up there, and they really are getting there. And if Albon and Sainz can pull out some more teamwork across the season, kind of like what they did in Jeddah, making sure they took home that 8th and 9th, making sure Albon didn't come under any big threat for Hadjar, I think it was, they could stand a good chance of getting their best results in the Constructors since 2017. Albon and Sainz are, as I've indicated, both solid drivers capable of gaining the results required for the team team to get 5th, so long as they can keep the car in the window to be able to, if you catch my drift. And on that, I have seen headlines that they've apparently switched 100% to 2026, which isn't really all that surprising if true that teams are starting to look more and more towards 26. I think it was around about this time of the year in 2021, about the start of May, when we had teams looking more and more to the 22 reg change. For Williams' sake, in the bid for 5th, hopefully their shift to 26. It doesn't hurt their chances of too much. I seem to remember Ferrari in 2021 no really bringing much big in the terms of updates to the SF21 across the season, and they still managed to get 3rd ahead of McLaren, but well, we'll see. Then there's Haas. Solid driver lineup with a rookie who's shown in his short time in Formula 1 so far that he's got potential, and he's already scored a handful of points, and they have an experienced pair of hands who in his time has nabbed a couple of podiums and even a race win. Yes, there was a good dose of luck involved in Ocon getting a couple of those results, but as we all can, luck is sometimes just part of racing, and when he was driving in those podium or win scoring positions, he has been able to hold his own. He can be a touch up or down, but Ocon is a solid midfield driver. As for their team principal trying to guide this team to the best result they can get, which, well, right now that's 5th in the constructors, well, like James Vowles, Ayao Komatsu has been around F1 for a while, joining the sport in 2003 with what is now Kent as Mercedes and was at the time known as BAR, which is actually where Vowles was at the time. But bye-bye. Komatsu has been with Haas since they joined F1 in 2016. He followed Grosjean over to Haas from Renault, or Lotus as it was in 2015. He was their trackside engineering director until he became team principal last year. He canes this team and he has proven himself as a capable leader. Because Haas went from kind of nowhere in 2023 to kind of being there in 2024. They weren't all that bad last year. I mean, for the love of God, they finished 7th last year. They're sitting 6th at the moment. Komatsu's got a good head on his shoulders. He was the right man to choose for the job. Look, Haas have finished 5th before. That has been their best ever constructors result back in 2018. Their best result in recent years, of course, being that 7th place last year that I just mentioned. Like Williams, they ended up slipping back to the back. They've had some rough years. 19, 20, 21 was a complete write-off. And I would say that Haas are probably more the underdogs in this Haas versus Williams battle. But they absolutely could come out on top if they do all things right and can keep the car in the window, like I said for Williams, and so long as the drivers can produce the results, which I'm sure they can. As I say, they've got a couple of good drivers in their team. New Haas P5 was my original prediction ahead of the season starting. And screw it, I like an underdog story. I still back my original P5 prediction of Haas P5. What's your thoughts on the Haas and Williams so far this season? And which of the two do you think will finish ahead? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.